The J Squared edition of the College Countdown. You're coming at you on a Thursday. I am Josh Neighbors. Alongside me, Jack Allen on the College Countdown podcast. Find us on Twitter at CC Podcast JN. You can find him at Jack Allen TV, and I'm at Josh Neighbors _. We've been using different devices, been all over the place, but glad to come at you. A busy football season. We've got a huge weekend. This is the biggest weekend of college football to date. We'll break down all of the games coming up, and also we will have some conversation about an old friend of ours who might make an appearance. Jack and I are going to talk a little Arkansas football. But Jack, how have you been? How are we managing here? The 25th of September, football season coming fast and furious.
You remember like a month and a half ago when everyone said that college football was dead and that, you know, the sport is dying and it's so bad now because of the transfer portal? I'm having fun. Are you having fun, Josh?
I am. I was wondering, one thing I was wondering about today, and I wanted to ask you about this, is has college football in particular become like way too personal? Because we work with DJ Williams, played tight end, Mackey Award winner at Arkansas. He's on the 10-1 show at my radio station. And he's out there like scrapping with players' dads on Twitter. And like DJ has done a great job building his brand and whatnot. But like he's there for the fight. He enjoys it. But like, do we need people fighting with people's dads? Like, God love DJ. Once again, nothing wrong with them doing it. It's gotten great engagement, so I would do it too. But like, is it just becoming a bit too personal at this point?
Look, Josh, I would argue that that's what makes college football great. I mean, I think back to, as someone who grew up in LSU, I remember when Landon Collins committed to Alabama and his mom is sitting on the other side of the stage shaking her head like, oh no, I'm not going to let my baby go to Alabama. Like, I'm so disappointed. Like, that is what this sport lives and dies on. And to see that it's still in that place just makes my heart sing.
Yeah, so actually I wanted the part of that to break this down. So I remember when Hugh Freeze took the job at Liberty, and I was like, maybe the only school in the country, the so-called Christian university that is Liberty, would hire the guy who called prostitutes off a school phone right after he got fired from that job to go be their football coach. Then he came back to the SEC, and I was like, you know, winning is all that matters now. And it's happening at Arkansas because this week we had a really interesting exercise, I think, in all of it, with Brandon Marcello saying this past weekend that Bobby Petrino was in line to be the next Arkansas football coach. He said he's been working the phones, baby. And then he kind of backed off from that, but like not totally backing off from it. And I want to show everybody here what I mean, because this is the PR dance that we see people and people's representatives and things of that nature do all the time. And so I'm going to share my screen here, and so everybody can see exactly what I'm talking about. So his comment was that, you know, he's been working the phones. He's ready to take over as head coach. And then he said, this caught fire. Let's be clear. Sam Pittman and Bobby Petrino have been / are close. They are help each other a lot, Capitals. They're trying to fix the Hogs. Petrino is not, and I like how he puts the 2 stars on each side of not, undercutting. Many I've talked to believe he is now the logical choice if an interim is needed. So like it's a walk back, but not a walk back because it's the same result, right? And then here's the interesting part to me is that on our radio waves, Frank Fletcher, a supporter of Bobby Petrino, a supporter of the University of Arkansas, comes on our show to tell us that he talked to Bobby Petrino, and Frank is a very important person in the money circles in Arkansas, and he called us to tell us that Bobby is not talking to the money people in Arkansas, which is totally ironic considering the person calling us called the coach to tell us that people like him are not talking to the coach. And so it's funny to me, all of it, this odd circle where it's like, look, the result is most likely Bobby Petrino takes over, but this song and dance that everybody's doing, that how strong does he want to come off? Well, obviously he's the logical choice because the offense has been so good. And also the third part of it, Jack, is, man, I mean, the idea that Bobby Petrino could be the Arkansas football head coach again, a place where he was so successful, then obviously had to leave, and some people didn't want him to go. But his career took him towards, took him to Louisville, and then it took him to Missouri State, and then it took him, everywhere else in between, and then back to Arkansas. And now he's allowed to take the job. But all of this is happening at once, and like I think the human side of it to me is so fascinating about all of it. But your thoughts about the booster calling a radio station to tell people that the boosters aren't talking to Bobby? Don't worry about it.
Well, I mean, I think it's just funny how like you said, the circle of information goes. There is no clear-cut line. It's not like we have a bunch of press releases, or like I feel like in the NFL and in professional sports, things like this are a lot more streamlined because the decision makers are in actual positions of power. And this is what makes college football so fun, is that the decision makers a lot of times are the people with the money, and the people with money don't have any actual official decision-making power. And so there's this weird balance of what's official, what's not official, what, goes into making these decisions. And it's this reality. The reality is that in terms of who on Arkansas's staff is best positioned to take over if Sam Pittman is fired, let's be clear, Sam Pittman is still the head coach at Arkansas. But if/when that is no longer the case, he's the one who has the coaching experience. He's the one who's been coaching the side of the ball that's been more successful. Like, he seems like the logical choice. And so it's just funny, like, none of this had to come out. None of this had to be said. If it just can't, if just one day it was like, okay, it's Bobby, everybody would be like, yeah, that makes sense. But here we are in this world of weird information where people, want to make decisions without being able to make decisions, that we land in these spots.
And to be clear, like, if I'm Bobby Petrino, I'm making those calls, because I think the thing is that if you asked him a couple of years ago, like, do you ever see yourself as an SEC head coach again? I think he knows the coaching skill is there. He has to know. I mean, his offenses have been, prolific. And I mean, this offense is no difference. And even last year's, I didn't like the way they finished drives. I mean, the numbers will tell you that, the numbers didn't like the way they finished drives, but they could gain
yardage
yards.
There.
Yeah, the yardage was there. Yeah, they gave the punches and bunches, if you will. And this year, I guess you could say the punching stats are there. The power punching is a bit more there, despite the fact that the last 2 weeks haven't gone their way. But still, they're scoring at a pretty high clip.
Well,
right.
This past week, you kind of saw a glimpse of that last year offense of getting the yardage, but not necessarily being able to finish the drive.
Right. And so, like, the thing is that he is the most successful coach in the modern era for Arkansas football. He's and once again, he was brought in after a 4-win season. He's going to have a bit more. If he has all of his ducks in a row, he's going to get more leeway than most interim coaches get. Like, he's going to have more of at least in my opinion, he'll have more of a shot at this job, especially if there's a change at the athletic director spot, which we don't really know. But he's going to have as much rope as he needs, and he's going to have as many targets as he needs to land victories. I mean, if he can land some square victories, if he ends up being the coach, obviously. But the point being here, why wouldn't you have your ducks in a row? Why wouldn't I would be, if I was his agent, I'd be calling, I'd be, if I was him, I'd be calling the people I know, say, hey, I'm behind the head coach now. If this does occur, so let you know, like, I have a plan, but right now I know I'm working. But it's funny because there is this dance that's happening. But you made a great point about the NFL. When was the last time you saw a coordinator coup? Like, it was the last time a coordinator was like, I'm undermining the head coach. Here I come. You don't see that.
You don't see that because whenever a head coach goes, he takes the coordinators with him. Like, that's the reality, is that this kind of stuff doesn't happen in the NFL, because in the NFL, it's full staff hirings and firings, or at the very least, when the head coach goes, the new guy brings in all of his new staff with him.
Yeah, I mean, I remember they joked the Washington Commanders with the Washington Panthers when they hired Ron Rivera, because he brought like 15 people from the Panthers to be on his staff. And like, yeah, no, you're totally right about how that ends up working out. And once again, we'll see this weekend, but the Florida job is obviously the one that's looked at. We'll see how much rope, they give Billy Napier there. I saw I needed to see Arkansas wise last week, but the situation is funny because everybody's got an opinion about it. And I think to me, it's been heading this way for a while now. But it's playing out where after the 4-8 season, they bring back Bobby Petrino. It's like, there's a reason for that. You couldn't just bring back the staff. You needed to give them something to be excited about. And they didn't just get an exciting coordinator. They got the most successful head coach in recent memory to be the coordinator. And so I think it was kind of always heading this direction. And they've built a roster, partially out of design, but partially because of lack of funds, that kind of looks a lot like the rosters that he built that were really, really good. If not him, then who? To take over a team that looks just like this, right?
Exactly. I think, the fun part is there's also some legal issues that need to be straightened out because he was an employee of the state that was fired for moral grounds. And there's just some other pieces that have to work out if he's going to get the full-time job, which is another reason why
you the interim title he can take.
That's what I'm saying is you want to get those wheels turning hey, I'm interested in this. If this is going to happen, we might need to make some movement. There are things. He's clearly the one for the interim. I don't necessarily know if he's the answer long term,
right?
Because I think that
but if anybody's performance as interim could earn them the head coaching job at Arkansas, it would be him. Yeah. All right, this is a great weekend of football. It's the best weekend we've had, and so as opposed to you and I talking about some of the bigger picture stuff that's happening, we are going to go and look at some of these games this weekend. And we'll look at these games thanks to our friends at the DraftKings Sportsbook. DraftKings, I want to thank them for sponsoring this great program. And they've got a great little promo for you. If you use the promo code NEIGHBORS, first time signing up, you bet $5, you make $300 in bonus bets when you sign up immediately. And folks, it's not hard to find a game to toss 5 on. Even tonight as we're recording, the East Carolina Pirates are 4-point favorites against the Army Black Knights. If you're interested in that kind of thing, which I am, you can look at that. I'm very interested in the Black Knights +4 in the road in that game. So you guys can go to the DraftKings Sportsbook. And for me, it's the best interface out there. If you're up against it, if you're like 2 minutes away from the game time, nothing will get you to all the bets that you want to make faster than the DraftKings Sportsbook. Also let you guys know, the crown is yours when you use DraftKings. So Neighbors, NEIGHBORS. That's your promo code. $5 get you $300 in bonus bets. Also, if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER in New York. HOPENY as well. You can text that in Connecticut. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas. Fees may apply in Illinois. 21 age plus, and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire after 7 days issuance. For additional terms and responsible gambling resources, please go see dkng.co/audio. All right.
Is there anything scarier, Josh, than playing a service academy on a short week?
No, it's actually like I remember when Virginia Tech would play with Georgia Tech, because like Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech was always a Thursday night game. And it's like, oh God, no, and you could see it coming from a mile away, having to play a triple option team on short notice. So you're totally right about that. And then Florida State visits Virginia. I'm not really sure about how good Tony Elliott's group is this season.
Did you see the Virginia kids have to go to class that day?
They did. The players?
No, well, like the chancellor came out and said, "Hey, we're not canceling class today."
That is so UVA of them.
We don't care if we have a game on a Friday night
against a top 10 team.
You're going to class.
So UVA of them. That is, as somebody who's got a brother who graduated from there, who's got half my graduating class went to UVA. That's very, very on brand. All right, a line that I've struggled to understand is Arkansas and Notre Dame 4.5. This thing's gotten as low as 3.5. It's back up to 4.5. Anytime it's a coach's last stand, Jack, I'm interested. I think the line reflects that, but this could be a hammer and nail situation. Notre Dame is running the shit out of the football, to be honest. We're just being totally honest with what's happening. And people, I heard some folks say, hey, Notre Dame might be out of this thing. If Notre Dame rips off 10 in a row, they're not going to keep them out of the playoff, in my opinion, at least. And I mean, rip it off they might run it off, because that rushing attack last week looked about as good as you could ask for.
Now, it was against Purdue. Which like Purdue is not the powerhouse of the Big Ten.
Well, they have a defensive-minded head coach, and like they were creating gigantic holes.
Yes, but the reason on the flip side though is they haven't done a great job defensively this season, and I think that this could be a very pointsy game. And at home for Arkansas in a pointsy game, like I'm not necessarily going to bet against Taylen Green, despite what we saw last week. I think that this is I like the over is the number that I'm more focused on here. Over 64.5. That sounds like a really low number to me for what this game could be.
Yeah, I think it opened at 63, so you've seen some movement towards that going up. Also in tomorrow night, another game. I want to mention this: Arizona State hosting TCU. Now, you and I have been at Texas market and covered. This might be a really good TCU team, and this just might be a deal where Sonny Dykes like sucks for 2 years, and then he's like, all right, I found the concoction I need. But Josh Hoover, I remember we took over, they had something there. This kind of looks like the full-fledged thing. Like this might be the Sonny Dykes operation that we've been waiting to see. I think the line reflects that in a conference where things are pretty balanced. TCU getting only three on the road against a team that we think is really good and pretty physical, and we know is well coached, I think speaks volumes. And I'm taking the Horned Frogs here. I think they win the game outright. I think they've got a chance they can get that defense a bit more consistent and maintain on offense. They might have that Big 12 championship formula there at TCU.
Well, isn't this how the Big 12 has worked for the last half decade? It's team who was picked to finish at the bottom of the conference figures things out, and very quickly you can flip from bottom of the conference to top of the conference. We saw Baylor do it. We saw Oklahoma State do it. We saw TCU do it, where it's like a team that finished the year before down at the bottom, not projected to do a ton, comes out early, surprises a bunch of people, and ends up in the Big 12 championship game. TCU just seems like the latest in that group that could do it.
It is a revolving door in that conference. Then you go to the 2:30 window, and what a slate we have here. Ohio State at Washington, which, this is the Patriots go play the Raiders, right? You know what I mean? It's like, the Raiders are frisky, and but yeah, the Eastern Coast team traveling west, which makes it obviously interesting. Want to see that young quarterback of Washington has, and then also down the line, Indiana after a big win is going to Iowa, which Iowa's offense looked a lot more competent last week, against Rutgers, albeit. We'll see what they can do, but Indiana looked fantastic. You got Auburn on the road again against Texas A&M, body blow effect. Obviously, the LSU-Ole Miss game is right there with Whit Weeks and Kiffin's daughter thing happening, which I know, you got to – I'll give you some space and I'll clear out, I'll pass the ball and clear out on this one. But also Utah and West Virginia. 12.5 for Rich Rod at home seems like a lot of points to me in that situation. And Rich Rod already shown a ability to bounce back. Loses to Ohio, beats Pitt backyard brawl. They got smoked by Kansas last week. Wouldn't shock me if they take Utah to the wire here. So a lot to dive into, a lot to chew on at 2:30 Central Time this week. But we have to go to the Whit Weeks Kiffin, situation there. I'll let you go ahead and talk
Josh,
about
I don't really have a good read on this and how this plays, because a lot of
the game or the relationship.
The relationship and how it impacts. Like I've seen a lot of people try to make the claim that this is mind games against LSU or mind games against Ole Miss, and my question is like, which side is the benefiting party? Except for us. I think we are the benefiting party here. But like, which side is this more of a distraction for? The dad whose daughter is dating a player on the other side, or the player whose dad is coaching on the other side?
I have to think that in terms of a game, like I know you and I have been on the corner that LSU Auburn is weird, and then LSU Florida got pretty weird a lot, very often. But in terms of the coaches, and like I know Brian Kelly is like, he plays a straight man, but like, let's be honest, it's kind of gotten a little wacky with Brian Kelly, just everything at this point, goes after reporters. And then, ever since he's been at LSU, it's kind of been a little
dancing on the turntables.
Yes. Ever since he's been at LSU, it's been a different deal. And then you've got Kiffin and Ole Miss on the other side, which like, he is fun in general, but if you kind of detach Lane Kiffin from Ole Miss, like, or just who Lane is. He is a really good coach who's giving a program that kind of outkicked their coverage with the coach the best string of success possible. I mean, and you see that happening when you bring in a backup quarterback and he's having success, right? That's a tribute to the roster you've built, because you've built enough depth that you can still maintain a really good program. And look, back in the day, but when Ole Miss had a good season, usually bad seasons would follow because a lot of those guys are gone. Well, they lost a lot of guys off the best defensive line in football, and the defense isn't great. They lost good, running backs as well, and the running game's still good. They lost a quarterback they liked a lot, but their Division II guy has been pretty good. This game is fascinating because LSU's offense has not, even last week at times, they weren't the group that we thought we would see. This is a fascinating game because I think folks are waiting to see, can any of these teams, either of these two teams, look elite? The second half against Clemson for LSU looked elite, but they've not found that form on a consistent basis. And I think Ole Miss has played well, but the offense looks really, really good. That defense leaves a lot to be desired.
As both teams, it's been almost a matter of they've done enough to win. They've done what it takes to win. And that's something Brian Kelly talked a lot about in his press conferences, was this idea of like whenever a reporter challenged him about the offense after that Florida game, he was like, we won the game because they were running the offense in a way to put themselves in a position to win the game. And I think that that's a frustrating thing as a fan to look at, is because you want your team to win by 70 every week. You want your team to look the part every week. And sometimes these gritty, gutty wins are what it takes to reach that next level, and to do what it takes to win. This week, whenever you're going against a little bit more firepower on offense in Ole Miss, I think the LSU offense will have to open up a little bit, and it'll have to play a little bit different in order to get there. Josh, I do want to mention real quick my Trinidad Chambliss rant. The new quarterback at Ole Miss, backup D2, everyone's making, where did he come from? After the Arkansas game, after he had this kind of coming out party, Lane Kiffin spent a lot of time in the podium talking about how, man, this is just such a credit to their scouting network, and they can go out and find these guys, and they're rough, and they've got guys in D2 that are looking through, and they found a guy like Trinidad. Trinidad Chambliss was the quarterback on a national championship team. He turned on ESPN and saw that kid playing and said, man, that kid's really good. I want him. It's not that hard. Watch some D2 football, even in the playoffs.
You, as a guy who covers a lot of D2 football,
I watched him tear Harding to pieces. It's not that hard to know that kid was going to be good at a higher level.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the idea is for folks who don't know, we live where Harding Academy is, and if you turn on one of the Harding games 2 years ago from a championship season, your alma mater, obviously, you would know they're a really well-coached team. They're the first team in NCAA history to run for 5,000 yards in a season. So, along those lines, right, we can tell they're well-coached. We can tell this kid can play, right? I mean, you can tell.
Just running wild all season. I'm sorry, just that.
And he's good. Just watching him play, you're like, this kid's really good.
Well, it's like people who watch college football and they're like, oh, this Cam Ward kid's probably pretty good. It's like, no,
we could turn on the grainy incarnate word footage. It's like, well, that throw is out of the screen again because he's got a hose. Yeah. I'm with you on that front. I'm with you. And then we get to the night slate where we've got the real thing here is this two pair of games here. Oregon at Penn State, and then Alabama at Georgia. Oregon's been a wrecking machine. Penn State's offense has left a lot to be desired, but Andy Kotelnicki's the kind of do a lot with less type guy, right? I mean, he just always has a good game plan. That's going to be a great environment, obviously. Want to see what Dante Moore looks like on the road, but we've thought Penn State might be the team. Maybe it's Oregon. Oregon could maybe be the team that we thought they might have been last year. They look great up front. They really, really do. And I want to see that Penn State offense because they need to operate at a higher level. They need to use all parts of the field. And then Alabama, Georgia, which I don't really think we have to say too much more about that. And then here's the thing. I think Bama's really good. Would not be shocked if Bama goes into Georgia and wins that game. Would not be shocked at all.
I mean, with Oregon Penn State, it's the same feeling that I had with Nebraska going into a big game. Was that last week, 2 weeks ago, where it's like, I'll believe it when I see it. I'll believe that Matt Rule will win a top 25 team game when I see it. I will believe James Franklin will win a big game when I see it. And until then, like, that's the big piece with this from a confidence standpoint, is the second that Penn State can earn a win against one of these top 5, top 10 programs, suddenly the narrative around that team changes. Suddenly the confidence around that team changes. But as someone who grew up with LSU in the mid 2010s, there was always the same idea of like, okay, LSU is really good, but Bama's on the schedule. And then none of it matters until you beat Bama, until we see how they compete against Bama. That's kind of what it's been like with Penn State, is they're really good. I think we can all agree they're really good. But until they do it against their Alabamas, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, I think this team's very good. I think the defenses they build year in and year out, and like also they've got the guy. I mean, we saw the defenses that Jim Knowles has built. I mean, even back to Duke were really strong defenses. So I think that they've got a chance, and they recruit those guys. I mean, like, they're terrifying. The Penn State the linebackers especially are always terrifying. I think both those games should be close and they should be exciting. And look, the weapons on Alabama, like we saw Tennessee spread things out and have some success. Alabama's got the same capability. If Ty Simpson can be more on time than he was in that Florida State game, he was really behind. That was the first game of the season, though, on the road. Faces the same kind of environment. This is not the same Georgia defense that we're used to seeing. But I don't not many defenses are anymore. Like these nasty defenses that we're used to seeing. I mean, they're all susceptible to some level because the level of offensive play, like, and to use a local example for us, Taylor Green's a Ferrari, like, and he's playing for Arkansas, and he's the fastest player in the field. And Ryan Williams is the fastest player in the field. You can't just cover a guy like that. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, defense has become so hard in the modern game. You throw in RPOs and just the way that the game has evolved schematically, like those tough, hard-nosed defenses with giant 250-pound linebackers with the shoulder pads and the neck, like that doesn't exist because they can't cover guys in passing routes. It's just the game has changed so much to where those hard, tough-nosed defenses just don't really have space to exist like they did in the past.
All right, Jack, where can folks find you and all of your work in this variety?
Jack Allen TV on social media. You can find our work on KATV.com. If you're in Arkansas, big game on ABC this week, Arkansas and Notre Dame. We will be getting you ready. Pre-game at the stadium. Our morning show is going to run from 9 to 11, and we'll have tons of hits, tons of content from there.
All right, you can find me on Twitter at @JoshNeighbors_. Find the show at CC Podcast JN, and we'll see you guys next week. Thank you, Jack. Appreciate it as always.